Yeah, I woke up in a bad mood, from my dreams, which repeats the same kind of patterns that are consistent in interacting with the people primates, and knowing that today I would want to go to the office of the Ministry of Poverty Creation, and I had the 5 questions already in my mind of what I would ask, and want to record it to see human rights violations and culture breaking business as usual. It just discouraged me. It's the same old. So anyways, I wanted to be at a different coffee shop. I love getting up in the morning. I just don't have any social interactions to look forward to in the morning, and I'm not a big coffee fan. I just need a place to do my internet homework. But I wanted to go to a different place because just the same old patterns of repeating myself and seeing behaviors that for me are obviously in the process of devolving the human condition is just discouraging when I wake up feeling this way from the dreams, which is just processing the norm a lot of the time of the experiences. So I tried a different franchise for the coffee. And there was one franchise closer to where I spent the night on the side of the road under some, electrical cables. But that place is the owner is abused by her spouse, who has a business next door too, and facilitates others, female employees being abused by this guy. So, how much do I want to support that with the limited dollars I have when I feel this way? So I went a little bit further for the same franchise, and it was nice. They offered me a coffee as soon as I showed up because there was an error made, but I bought a brownie, which was delicious. But the thing about franchises, though, like for example, I asked for honey and they give me 4 little packs of honey here, which is a delicious honey, but you gotta open it, be careful, wonder who touched it with what, because I like licking whatever when you kind of cut that little wrapper. And I dropped one on the seat. I cleaned a little drop on the seat of honey. I cleaned it. You got to be careful. It takes time. At the other franchise where I typically had been going in the mornings before 7, way before 7, is they did what I suggested last year, which is just, a push big plastic honey thing. Now, if the franchise of this other place discovers they do this, they might be upset, which is one of the things that's crazy. People will start a franchise. Before they started, they'll say, oh no, of course, if it's better to do something like the honey in that way, we'll do it. Then they discover the franchise doesn't want to, and they comply. And this builds, OCD and other forms of mental illnesses where, owners and managers, if you're going to be there for a while, you have to take on mental illnesses with franchises. McDonald's are horrible in that way too. And then the staff picks it up the longer they're there, or if they want to be successful or minimize their stress, which also minimize their human thinking tools and their ability to, communicate better than other primates. Because I'm pretty sure at this point, people that work in franchises, if somebody did the research to see if they'd communicate things in their own ways, right, based on their species, they would fail in communication skills compared to other primates. So it's pretty sad, I observe these things. Some of the despair I have that luckily now doesn't last as long as it did in the past because of my human thinking tools but it's always there, right? I always interact with the Homo communia, the people primates, in ways that brings back this despair. It's that I was born in a time in history, and then I would have the courage to develop these critical thinking skills and a theory to explain this, and solutions if I believed that eventually a change of paradigm would come, that they would apply the solutions, this failed species of primates that I shared DNA with. But it's so cruel to live in this time of history that people kind of know, they say, oh man, they kind of know a little bit what it feels like, to be connected to reality in the way that I am, based on this stage of history that our species has created and that is harmful to us and the rest of the biosphere. They kind of know, and they kind of sometimes just brush the surface, and then suddenly, they need to get out of that. And then they don't know how to connect with somebody like that anymore. They think I'll bring them down to this black hole. And it kind of is a black hole, but when you have the skill sets I do, you can escape these black holes, and it becomes easier if other people develop these skill sets. But again, that's a losing battle. So please stop having kids and grandkids, people. Like, when you kind of sense the reality that I discuss with you when you're kind of discussing philosophical things or political things, and then I come in and I kind of say something quickly and send you into a more accurate, deeper foundational paradigm of, you know, what you discuss up here, and I bring you down here, and you say, that makes sense, I agree with you. And then you have to find the link between what you were discussing and what I just said, which is foundationally, you kind of know, right? You have your own ways to observe what I'm talking about. But for you guys, you know, it needs to be discarded. It needs to be simplified. It can't go deep into reality because it's overwhelming. You can't just develop, you know, independent social researcher skills. You have to develop a very resilient mind that can fight off, you know, despair and various forms of mental illnesses. So that's one of my advantages. I mean, partially this was planned, partially it was random choices over time. So it's nice that I have a variety of skill sets that allows me this thing, but it also makes it that through choice and through random events, I have become a very solo, alone person. Now I can handle that, and I can get a little bit of my social interactions with this species I share DNA with or other ones. And the other species are a lot more rewarding, the social interactions, than the one I share DNA with. But again, the more of you want to take the path by choice or random that you take, and less of mine, then mine is harder, and yours, you know, is your evolutionary dead end. If more people were ready to, you know, like develop an ecocentric worldview. So if I say, hey, like I had a whole bunch of people on Facebook contact me for new friendship requests. I'm not sure. I mean, they just said I popped up on their suggested friends list. But it happened, you know, it looked like fairly soon after I put a post about the RCMP and how I would offer to have a new type of job with them if they're ready for a change of paradigm. But also interacting with CSIS, Canada's intelligence agency, although, you know, it's a different way they use the word intelligence. And that's not an insult. It is kind of in that industry. They will use that term in a different way. So for me, you know, I think they'd be pretty pissed off interacting with me when I use intelligence a different way. And I'm confident in it, and I can role model it, as they would try to, if they ever thought of hiring somebody like me, which would not be bad, but it would be bad if they did it in a way that is confrontational instead of, what can we learn from Martin? Same thing, a National Defense of Canada, Canadian Armed Forces, what can we learn from Martin? Mental health institutions, like the Canadian Mental Health Association, what can we learn from Martin? And I'm not saying I don't have anything to learn from them, but I'm saying that I'm pretty sure that if you do independent research, I'm more the culture repairer, they're more the culture breakers. So that's, you know, that's pretty easy to demonstrate. So if this is true, and it is pretty easy to demonstrate and verify, then if it's true, you know, stop saying, Martin, you got an attitude. No, you've got an attitude. You know, like, I'm consistent with my cultural repair role modeling, even if it makes my life hard. That's what being sentient and sapient means. That's what being human means. So my ecocentric worldview, I'm coming back to this lady on the internet who's a U.S. Marine. And I say, oh, how do you like that job? And she's, you know, happy to serve her country. And then if I say something, well, you know, my programming is ecocentric, which means, you know, I would think that it's a form of mental illness to, you know, to dedicate a life to serving a country. Because, you know, no matter what country you want to think about, if it comes to our species, we are harmful to the biosphere. Not just other life forms that coexist with us, but even ourselves. We are harmful to the biosphere that sustains us, which is bad for us. So because of that, I don't agree with people serving countries or even serving their own species. Now they would think there's something wrong with me, and me, it's like, well, this is Homo sapien thinking, and that doesn't mean, I'm trying to bomb your country or something like that. It just means that, I'm not going to devolve myself just to have a buddy that will bring no joy in my social interactions with them, right? And for me, that's just me not wasting my time, which I have the right not to do. So, yeah, it's kind of weird that you guys don't get basic common sense. But again, I have to reference how your mind works. I have to almost like not use my brain's higher functions to imagine, how you interpret the words that come out of my mouth as a primate that shares the same DNA as me, but you don't have the schemas for it. You don't have a foundation. You don't have a file in your head for where to put it and make the interactions with what's in other files.